Oh, okay. I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm just gonna do it.
What could go
I'm
wrong?
Lili-Anne Brown. I'm the director of Eureka Day. Welcome to this webinar. Uh, let's just do a round of introductions um, in alphabetical order.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tell
Okay.
people who you play in the show.
Hi, I'm Aurora Adachi-Winter and I play Meiko.
Hi, I'm Caroline Chu, and I play Winter.
Is it me? Hi, I'm Gabrielle Lott-Rogers and I play Carina.
Hi, I'm Jürgen Hooper. I play Eli.
Hey, I'm PJ Powers. I play Don.
Hi, I'm Rebekah Ward. I play Suzanne.
Awesome. So we were just talking right before the webinar started about, so I'm going to start us off in a weird place because why not? Because this is sort of how our process was. So we can show people what that was like. And by taking the scenic route, we were just having a conversation about audiences and audience participation and feedback from the audience, like what it's like, right? Like apparently last night there was a very active, a little bit raucous audience. Sometimes we have audiences on the quieter side. And what's it like? Like, let's talk about maybe what the first time you had an audience, what the difference was. What did that do the first time we had an audience?
I would say it was incredibly validating because there is a certain scene in the show where you're doing it in a vacuum with how long you're rehearsing, and you're kind of like, I have no idea how this is going to work. And then all of a sudden, that audience response comes in and goes, "Oh, okay. Not only are we doing the job that we need to, but there's also a lot more work that we need to do at this moment," which was incredibly exciting and also validating that all that work is actually there for us. So that's what I'll say without giving anything away.
It
Yeah,
definitely changed our. Oh, no, you go.
yeah. So that very first audience was wild because earlier that day we did a final dress rehearsal for, the same 10 people who had been watching it for weeks in rehearsal. And they can only, chuckle so much when they've been seeing it for weeks. And then suddenly we had 400 people just laughing their head off. And I was unprepared for the tidal wave of noise and came out of that one now infamous scene three. And I have a fairly quick costume change. And so I'm running upstairs and Caroline comes out of her dressing room because she was just listening to the show from backstage. And that first night, she just runs into the hallway and sees me sprinting, and she goes, "That was amazing!" Because it really was our first time getting to experience fully the brilliance of Jonathan Spector's writing.
Yeah.
That is that's amazing. Anybody else want to talk about audience? Like, well, how about what was the most surprising? What's been the most surprising audience reaction? Was there something that you did not expect people to laugh at? Or something that you thought people would laugh at that is not really getting a laugh?
I think there's a moment near the end where people will clap or snap. And again, I don't want to give anything away. And I was not expecting such a large reaction to that. We don't get it all the time, but when we all have this realization and the audience does as well, it's an interesting one.
Oh, that is interesting.
Yeah, it's a big practice in flexibility and adaptability because every time it's different. So, sometimes there's a huge vocal response. Sometimes you can tell they're really with you, but it's a quieter house, and that changes when we pick up not necessarily our cues, but maybe holding for a laugh, but then not holding for a laugh, and then moving on, and just um, there's a strong connection to the pace that the audience participates in. And that is ever changing depending on who's sitting there.
When you talk about surprising audience reactions, there are some moments in this play that get kind of, I would say, difficult, awkward, uncomfortable, kind of deep, sad, and you watch the audience kind of respond in that way where the laugh is so desperately needed in order to cut the tension, and it's wonderful to see the places in which those come. And the difference between like a much needed laugh and the laugh at incredible awkwardness where you're kind of laughing through your teeth, like I just need this. So it's wild to find because they always differ. And it's just those are so incredibly interesting.
If anybody's just joining us, welcome to the Eureka Day webinar, Q&A, talk back, Zoom thing, Brady Bunch, folks in boxes. Welcome. We have a Q&A little chat. So if you have questions for us, please put them there, and I will prioritize your questions. We've got some topics we'll talk about, but I'll definitely prioritize your questions. Okay, great. We've got one from Maya. Good morning. How did the dramaturgical analysis of the show help with developing your characters and the overall final version of this production? Great question. Thank you. Anyone want to field that? Should I? Well, I
I'll
can't.
say
I didn't develop my character.
one thing that was really important, and Jonathan, the playwright, had been specific with us up front, saying you need to understand the area of Berkeley, California. It is its own unique thing, and don't misinterpret this play as fill in the blank urban population. And so it was helpful in our dramaturgy to sort of dig into more, okay, what is that community like? What are the demographics of that community? How socio-politically that community interacts. And I found that deeply helpful, and wanting to honor Jonathan's specificity about it.
Yeah, we did quite a lot of table work, which was a wonderful gift. And in that, Duran Williams, our amazing Dr. Duran, is our amazing dramaturg, and he also brought in tons of information for us, helped us when we were having discussions, and we had a lot of discussion, not always about the characters, but I think it contributes to the characters. As a director, how I like to do table work is a little wacky because I keep it kind of loose, because for me, I think that's when discoveries happen, is when you feel like you're not really working. And so I really try to create this atmosphere, especially when we're at table. So when we're working on the dramaturgy, when we're talking about the world, and we're talking about the characters, I think when we talk about ourselves, that ends up being how we bring some of the best parts of ourselves, or discovering the parts of ourselves that are going to contribute to the conversation and to the art, because artists bring themselves to the art. And so while yes, there's lots of dramaturgy and we do so much research to like become and transform, there's also sort of a core of what do we bring of ourselves to the art. And I think that's a really cool part of table work also.
And we went into so many different topics as a group, both during the table work and then throughout the rehearsal process, to keep deepening the scene work as we went. I think we talked about everything from what life was like in 2018 pre-pandemic, before any of us had experiences with COVID testing or quarantine, to different types of independent and private schools, to people's experiences as parents and working, and what different situations in our real lives feel like, but it really is on that detailed level of, okay, what is an element of this character's life that we feel like needs to be fleshed out or explored in some way in order to make everyone's lives on stage feel whole and real.
It was definitely interesting hearing from each of us individually about what our personal and cultural experiences have been with just vaccinations um, as a either a standard practice or not a standard practice, and how they are viewed in such a wide variety of ways, both regionally, socially, and it can it can be really enlightening to step outside of your bubble and realize like, oh no, that wasn't like that at all, or oh no, I grew up this way, and that there was a whole community that, whatever. And we spent some time on just recognizing that there actually are a broad array of starting points when it comes to people's feelings about in particular vaccinations. And I don't think that until playing Suzanne, I had ever spent much time at all considering that world. A lot of the things that she says, and I really give Jonathan Spector such regard for this, but he doesn't. There's nothing untrue. Everything that Suzanne uses, or it's her statistics, her facts, are all actual facts. And I was kind of like, I had my own bias of like, oh, so there's probably just a lot of like, exaggerated things or whatever. And actually that wasn't the case. So I was educated in my own work to play her. So
I'm glad you're talking about that, Rebekah, because the questions are rolling in. Thank you, everyone, for putting in your questions. So we've got some kind of related ones here. So from Helen and Richard Rivkin, who want to know, how did the current issues of mandatory vaccinations impact your interpretation of the play? And then Denise, who wants to know, how did the COVID pandemic affect the play, which was written pre-pandemic? And I feel like those are kind of related. So talking about vaccinations, the issues of mandatory vaccination, which isn't mandatory everywhere. So we talked about that quite a lot. And then the COVID pandemic, I can say a little bit tell them a little bit about how the play originally did not have this ending. Okay, so the play, which was written in 2018, got a new ending after the pandemic to reflect everything that had just, I mean, that ending is so perfect, because when the play was out, people, or essentially after the play came out, so after COVID happened, people felt like that play couldn't have been written in 2018. People who see it all the time say, wait, what do you mean that play was written in 2018? It's like it's prescient, because except for that ending, which delightfully was added to reflect what we'd just been through, that was all written before. Um, and I think people tend to, on its face, this can look like a play about vaccinations, but it's really a play about community and consensus. So would anybody like to add anything about vaccination and or COVID?
One of the things we talked about was how, I'm trying not to give away the end of the play, but how we start in one place where the school has a policy on vaccinations, and then we flip to another place, and either way there are people who are going to be excluded, and we know that not everyone is able to get the COVID vaccine because they're immunocompromised or whatever. And or for an array of reasons that they cannot get the vaccine. And how is it that we can like take care of everyone? How can everyone be included? And I've had conversations with friends after the play, and they'll say like, well, it's a private school and they can do what they want. And I'm like, that's true. And private schools are elitist. And Suzanne makes a point in the play about how, what if we all had to send our kids to public school? And how would we figure that out, and how much funding would then go into the schools, and how could we create an equal starting point for all of the kids in this country, which I still do not have an answer to. But it is interesting that we're still not able to find a way to include everyone.
Yeah, I'll just add, I mean, as Rebekah alluded to before, it was really hard to keep reminding ourselves to put us back in a 2018 mindset. And, we're rehearsing this play as we're also reading on a daily basis massive changes at the CDC, reading on a daily basis that South Carolina has over 800 measles cases right now. And, that is context that we just walk in to work with. But playing these characters, we have to put ourselves back in a 2018 mindset, which again, Jonathan Spector, man, I don't know how he was so clairvoyant. Oh, we have some Zoom bombers. I don't know how he was so clairvoyant in 2018 to have his finger on the pulse of these issues, to have his finger on the pulse of a virtual meeting gone wild. I mean, certainly those were happening in 2018, but
Mhm.
but Zoom wasn't as much embedded into our daily lives as it suddenly became 2 years after he wrote this play. So, yeah.
I've had a couple people talk about how for them the scene 3 was so cathartic. Um, as a response to what we went through as a society with COVID, and that, you know, we had this arresting, uh, abrupt cessation of interaction, and accompanied by fear and extreme trauma. And we're all doing our best to scramble and try to find this way to connect. And Zoom sort of rose to the moment. And of course, it wasn't perfect, and it was a way. I've like one person, a friend of mine, put it as like a collective exhale of that moment of what we all were struggling with during that time, and everyone doing their best, whether it was at school or work or however we were trying to still be in community via technology and all those things that were surrounding it. And then to have that very familiar scenario presented with so much what's the word? Relatability and humor. Like everybody got a breath that maybe some had somewhat been held since 2020, you know?
There was a question in the Q&A of, let's see. Denise said, "Oh my God, what was the original ending?" And I just know that it just focused on the outbreak, and it didn't have obviously an allusion to the year 2020. Again, like try not to give too much away. I don't know if the people who are here today are people who have seen the play yet or are going to see the play. So we're just trying not to give too much away so we don't spoil it for anyone. But yeah, that was the original ending. Let's see. Let's talk about, people always want to talk about scene 3. I feel like Well, I can talk about scene three a little bit. So for if you don't know, scene three of our play is infamous. It takes place in something almost a little bit like this, but imagine if the chat was and there was a chat function and y'all were cross talking and it got extremely out of control. Uh, and so while the actors have their own scene of being together, they're talking, they're sitting in the library on this webinar, supposedly supposed to present this united front of we're the executive committee and we're here to have this town hall and inform the community about what's going on and have a lively discussion so that everybody can feel like their needs are being met and they're being heard, their issues are being heard. And that's the setup of scene three. And then things go horribly, horribly awry in many different ways. We give a lot of flowers in our group here. We give tons of flowers to PJ for this scene because he's really the captain of the scene. He has to manage what's going on and keep it together. And it's a heavy, heavy lift as an actor. So
Yes.
I think we'll talk about, I'll just throw it to PJ to talk about what it's like to do scene three.
Absolutely wild. I can only compare it to riding a mechanical bull, which I've never done and I never want to do, but every night I feel like I'm getting on a mechanical bull and some nights I'm like, I got this. And some nights I'm like, oh, I am going to be thrown off this bull onto my head. Um, it's fascinating, the way Jonathan wrote the script. If you read the script, there are like four columns, three columns of all of us talking over each other, or down to the letter of when we cut each other off or when we overlap. And then there's a fourth column that is what is popping up in the chat. I would say it was the hardest scene I've ever had to memorize. It was giving me just nightmares for weeks. And I kept saying to my wife, like, oh, there's this scene, and I didn't want to give it away to her. That is so hard. She said, do you want me to run lines with you? And I said, I don't know how you would. I said, it would take me an hour just to explain what the hell is going on.
Remember
Um,
when we tried that a little bit? So people who ask me like, how did you rehearse that? I was like, well, I had sort of a harebrained idea that we did a couple times. And I knew I didn't want to keep doing it. I just thought it was good to do like right in the beginning so that we could all hear what was going to be happening. So our delightful, delicious understudies who were with us in rehearsal were so kind as to, I said, can you guys actually read aloud what will be happening in the chats? And so one day they just distributed all of the parts because it's like, oh my God, it's a lot of
Like
different
8 people,
voices.
right?
Yeah, it's a lot of different characters in this chat. And they divided them all up and decided who would say what. And our stage manager, JC, was hitting a bell. And we did that. We did that like two or three times.
We spent a
As a
day,
starter,
a
huh?
whole day
yeah,
on
Yeah,
yeah,
scene
and also we
three.
did
yeah.
spend an entire day. I mean, we
Yeah.
spent many days. We rehearsed scene three many different days, but there was a special day that we devoted the entire day to one scene of the play. And that I thought that was a fun day for me.
Yeah,
How
it
was
was
that for
great.
y'all?
And it's
It's
JC's comedic timing that's also being
Impeccable.
showcased there. Like
Our stage
and I
manager.
miss that little bell sometimes in my head. I still hear just ding.
yeah.
And
JC
for
is
those who have
controlling
seen
when
the
things pop
play,
up. Yeah.
there's you might remember from scene three from the Zoom community, Leslie Kaufman. I'm not gonna say anymore, but essentially our stage manager JC is Leslie Kaufman because our stage manager determines the timing of the chat. She's literally hitting a button for every character. And so the timing of Leslie Kaufman is entirely her, and she's wonderful at it.
And I've never seen a script that has a note like what Jonathan included, which basically says it's okay if the audience doesn't hear any of these lines. Just keep going. And it's like, wait, what? What playwright doesn't want their lines to be heard? And that seemed bizarre until we got an audience and realized, oh yeah, no, that's how if we were just holding, this play would be 3.5 hours long, and that scene would be an hour and a half. Um, but it is just a symphony cacophony of noise. Rebecca's like in my ear and I can't hear what she's saying because the audience laughter is so loud. So yeah, I've never
Good. I'm glad they're louder than me in your ear. I'm sorry, just a little.
Are we allowed
He's
to
got
talk
people
about that
crawling
one
in his
preview?
lap. He's got two different conversations happening here. The audience is laughing hysterically. He's watching a chat. Liz in our Q&A says, in scene 3, is the chat done in real time or is it on tape? That is what we're currently talking about. That's when I say our stage manager is hitting a button and she is responsible for the timing. That is all done in real time.
And I can see on my laptop what is popping up because that then triggers what my next line is or what another cast member's next line is. So being able to see that and know what the audience is seeing is integral.
Are
Jason,
we allowed
just
to
to give
talk about that one preview?
Too soon, Aurora.
Too soon. Okay.
Yeah, no. So there was during preview performances, you're working out kinks, and we got to that scene, and I opened my laptop one night, and I'm supposed to be able to see on the laptop everything the audience is seeing, and I opened the laptop, and the desktop appeared, which should not appear, and I had a moment of terror unlike any that I have felt before because I thought I don't know how to do this scene without being able to see this. And as each cast member came on stage and sort of saw that something was awry, just making eye contact with each of them, like, yep, what you're seeing is what I'm seeing. And we just pressed forward and started the show. And I slowly felt 4 hands on my back. Like, it's okay, buddy. You'll
You got
somehow figure it out. So it was a wild night because I couldn't see any of, but I could sort of hear like ding, ding, ding as comments were popping up. So it was trying to remember, like, okay, I think that's Leslie Kaufman saying this. I think that's Orson saying this. But it's a lot easier when you can actually see it.
It's a real testament, though, I mean, to the amount of work you put in to knowing all 4 of those columns in the script so well that it was only auditorily that you and we all just said you can't hear all of it at the same time. I mean, it was it was like you had won the Boston Marathon after we were all just so happy and proud and thrilled for you that day.
That's kind. I hope it never happens again.
Yeah, fair.
I still can't believe that happened and that you mastered that because that is quite literally actor's nightmare. Like these are the kinds of things that we dream about as artists. We have nightmares.
Yeah.
And it's a well-known sort of commonality. And you not only lived through it, but like conquered that. And that's amazing to me.
Thanks.
I still think about it and shiver, but you did it.
It was because I had those healing hands on my back, hidden from the audience.
And when we talk about memorization in general, like obviously, PJ, you have like the hardest one, but in general, we found in rehearsing this play that it's a super challenging play to memorize. Does anybody want to talk about why? Or what was challenging particularly for them with this play and memorization? Not PJ, we already know.
I want Jürgen to tell his secrets.
My secrets?
Yeah,
Um,
it was
Tell us
like
your
easy for
secrets.
you. Yeah, yeah.
Well, I also have some of the least to do in the play. So my secret was just the thing about the way he writes is not only does he write the way we speak, but he writes at the speed of thought. So there are line breaks in there that really do lend itself to, oh, I'm discovering my thoughts in real time. Like I have a point that I'm going to make, but then something might break in, or I am trying to figure out what I'm saying. And so you can really read, no, these things are actually purposefully broken up. But that also is difficult because you're speaking at the speed of someone else's thought, not yours. So
Mhm.
there's a difference between saying, no, no, yeah, or sure, I mean, no. And then the next thing you'll just be like, no, no, well, okay. And that's the way we talk. But you're going to do three of those within the same line. And so you've got, okay, I understand. And there are reasons for all of them, but it is difficult to speak at the speed of someone else's thought and to have it be so perfectly laid out because you don't get long lines of dialogue and things like that and have to figure it out. You have broken lines of dialogue that you've got to sit there and set yourself in that place, and your natural rhythms want to take over for certain amounts of time, and you can't do that. So it's kind of like memorizing Shakespeare or a musical in that way.
But without pentameter or a rhythm,
Right.
right? Like at least with Shakespeare, you can count on da 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 da, and that sometimes is a great device to help, but when it's not your personal, like you said, thought pattern or rhythm, I mean, it was, and it was trickier. And then also we would all have a similar phrase. I think each character has a similar phrase that shows up in multiple scenes, but it's worded just a little bit differently in each scene. And so you're like, does this one start with a well, but, or an oh, but, or a so, but if, and trying to be, word perfect about those things and find your own link, your own mental link. And a lot of times also the thought will go from something that's headed in one direction to an entirely different thing. And so you're trying to link those for yourself. And I mean, yeah, it was, at least for me personally, it was a the one of the hardest plays that I've ever had to memorize. And and terrifying at times in hoping to do it justice. But I think the way you explained it, Jürgen, is really, really accurate, that it's speaking at the speed of thought, but it's not your thoughts.
Right.
Yeah.
I still have Aurora, who was probably goofing around. Like there are certain ones where she like would throw out a mnemonic device. I still hear Sim in my flippin' head, which is sure I mean. Never mess that up. Like it's just I just hear that voice in my head and I'm like, yep, I got this one at least. Sim or like WYN or whatever. And so you're just like, okay.
Aurora, talk about the scones.
Talk about the scones.
The scones line. You were so mad about that at first. And you were like, I'm just gonna have to say it in my
Oh
mind.
God, the scones. Yes, yes. And there was just one, it's my line. I go, a little known fact, the secret to consensus. And I could never remember if it was a little known secret, a little known fact. And I could never get it. And we would be in rehearsal and I would just be like, and so then I finally realized I was like, I just have to think a little known fact, a little known fact, a little known fact in my head until that moment. And so when Rebekah has her line and then Jürgen has his line and I'm just going a little known fact in my head. And there's another one that I am messing it up every single night. And one day I'll get it.
It's a funny peek behind the curtain of like actors' process and things like that because you're never not you. You're not insane. You have to cross at this point. So it's never the character takes over so fully. Like you get in that speaking rhythm where it feels like it's happening, just with your heartbeat. Like that's the way you meet each other. But you get to watch again the moment that an actor's been struggling with the line so much and they nail it. there's a little look in their eyes, which is like, like that's so great. And again, only the actors on the stage see that, but you just watch it. It's so delightful to watch an actor be like, I got that. And now I can think it as opposed to be sweating profusely as I'm trying not to mess this line up.
Well, I think you guys are champs because I got to watch it all happen in a rehearsal room and I got to see all of those victories happen. So that's one great thing as the director that I get to experience is seeing those victories every day. Let's see. I've got some other questions. Oh, the set. Anybody want to talk about our beautiful, beautiful set that Colette, our scenic designer, designed this? Colette Pollard was our scenic designer, and she and I, before rehearsal starts, so when we're in what's called pre-production, that's when I do a lot of work with designers. And we talked a lot about Berkeley. Again, Jonathan Spector, our playwright, was so incredibly specific. Like I really can't underscore too much how great this playwright is and how well this play is written and how much he really gives you in terms of materials and access. Like Jonathan Spector was very accessible to us. We could ask him any questions. We could email him or whatever. He always wanted to know how you doing? Do you need anything? But also when you get the script that he wrote, he has lots of author's notes in there. And so he talks a little bit about what the school is supposed to be like, and he actually included in an author's note that the scenic design should be, or he describes it as the architecture is by a specific architect or one of her, someone influenced by her. And so Colette and I really kind of took that and ran and did a lot of research of that architect and people who were influenced by that architect. And we really decided to completely run with that. And so that school and having those like beams and that fireplace, all of that is really influenced by this particular architect. And then this is just a thing that I personally like. So it's a little bit of director's indulgence that I love an Easter egg, and I encourage people to bring things in and put them on the set, as well as we got stuff from all over to populate that set. Everything you're looking at on that set is real. Like it's not like, oh, we make it look like there's a lot of books by just sort of doing, no, no, no. Those are all books. And not only that, but the designers really built a library. It was very important to them that it was like kind of like a working library. So those books are all actually like sectioned and organized in a real way. They just really went above and beyond. And so can we talk about tell us what your Easter eggs are on the set or what your favorite thing is on the set?
I definitely have things that I love this. This was never something that was offered before in an experience, and I thought it was so cool. I have a 4-year-old named Sadie and a 7-year-old named Ezra, and I brought in some of their favorite books and then also some art that they had made, paintings and drawings and things like that. And she put them up, Colette and Amy, the props designer, put them in different places. And and for me, just personally, it really, what a thing to like put you right in your heart space. when you're on stage immediately to see, just to have your kids' stuff in this play that is so passionate about the well-being of children. And also like the time as a parent that you spend away from your kid when you're working. And that's, we all, it's a sacrifice and a choice and part of the world we live in, but to like get a tiny piece of them, I love it. I love it so much. And I feel proud. And I took pictures of where their stuff was on the set and they feel famous. And it's very, very fun.
Gabby, I think you've got some stuff on the set, yeah?
I've got a chessboard, and what's funny about it is it's the chessboard that I taught my youngest son how to play chess on, and that sits open in the back of our library. And there's an actual game that's happening on the chessboard that has been going on since preview. And every day there's a different move, and I have an idea who is playing with me, but it's very, I don't say anything about it because I'm in thought about this game. But yeah, it's so
I never knew
I
this.
didn't even know that was happening.
I didn't know this either, but I bet I know who's playing.
You know who's playing. I'm pretty sure you do. And I think it's his move now, because
That's
but they it's
That's awesome.
I am just it helps to ground the space, I think, for us to know that our experiences are in that space as we navigate this whole play. It makes it real for I'm sure everybody that has something on there. There's also D&D dice that are on the set. And that game was introduced to a lot of cast members in this production. And so just to have that representation there in the library, because the first time I ever heard about D&D was in grammar school, and so it's nice to see us as people in the space. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it helps. Alicia wanted to know, is there a reason why some books are displayed as prominently than others, or is it just some of the team's favorites? And I can answer that. So I had a lot to do with that. Some of them really are aesthetically pleasing. Like there's like a very large format corduroy, and it's placed
That's
next to the
Aurora's.
mushroom, and that's your book, Aurora? And it's so aesthetically pleasing. And actually, what's really sad is we had it in an even more prominent place, and we all loved it. We thought it was so cute and it was so pretty where it was. And then we teched our hospital scene, and I realized, oh man, that cannot be there. We've got to move it. And I was so sad to move it. And the scenic designer was so sad to move it. And so we had to move it to the back. But it literally is like those sections. The reason why some of the books are displayed is to tell you what section you're in. And so you'll see there really is a social justice section of this library. It's right in the front, where audiences can see it. There's one that's all like bedtime stories. There's one that's all like pooping and
potty time.
potty time.
There's a science
Literally
section. There's a
whole rack
geology
of like
section.
bathroom books. And so how we decided what was displayed was really like how to make it the most real, and also like what tells you what book section this is, and also what's fun or funny or aesthetically pleasing, especially because we know as artists, like as a director, as a scenic designer, it's kind of our job to understand what reads and what doesn't read, like what people will see and what will just kind of become part of the world and help make it feel full and make it feel real versus individual details that will actually be clocked by people sitting in the house. And so those are the kinds of decisions that Colette and I made, and everybody got to help, and that was really fun. Oh, PJ, you would know about this. Pat and Jim want to know if it was difficult getting the rights to this play.
Yeah, so it's wearing my other hat as timeline artistic director. We went after this quickly and aggressively, right when it opened on Broadway, about a year and a half ago, and also started conversations with Broadway in Chicago pretty quickly. Timeline has had a relationship with Broadway in Chicago and the Broadway Playhouse, doing Lehman Trilogy there and Oslo and To Master the Art, and so knew pretty early on that this would be a play that not only Timeline was interested in, but that Broadway in Chicago would be as well, as something that had just been on Broadway, just won a Tony Award, and knowing that Timeline's new theater was still under construction and that we were going to be performing elsewhere,
Mm.
we began conversations with Broadway in Chicago pretty early, saying I think this would be an ideal fit for both of us, and uh, yeah, I wanted this play here in Chicago at Timeline pretty darn bad, and luckily it worked out.
Nice. Tilly, and thank you for being such an active participant, Tilly. I love it. Tilly would like to know, how did the costumes help the cast embrace their character? And did the cast contribute any specific ideas? Fun question.
It's fun.
Um,
Anybody want to talk about their costume?
I'll say so. Originally, Meiko was a little bit more like businessy, and my first fitting, I had a lot of I had more heels and things. And then after designer run, Yvonne, our very brilliant costume designer, was like, you move around a lot and you're a little bit quirkier than I kind of had originally thought. So we're gonna make some changes. And then I also made Meiko a little bit of like a crystal girly. So I asked for like some crystal jewelry and necklaces and things like that. And there was a moment where we did try to incorporate a giant crystal into the show, but it wasn't established. It didn't make sense really. But I think
R.I.P. Crystal.
RIP that crystal. Where are all of those different crystals that we
We
tried?
tried so many.
So many. But that was part of how I wanted to bring a little bit of the woo-woo California to Mexico.
I had a lot more sports coats and things like that. He seemed a lot more like he. And then I think they saw me like spidering around the set because he's described in the character descriptions as being like an amateur rock climber and expert pickler. And so I was like, and again, so I'm just climbing all over the set and playing with everything. And so that seemed to change pretty rapidly.
What's great is I feel like with your answers, you're also sort of teaching people how process works. So for folks who don't know, there is kind of late in the rehearsal process, very late in the rehearsal process, we do a thing called designer run. And this happens basically a few days out from when we start tech rehearsals. And tech rehearsals are when we actually move in from the rehearsal room into the theater onto the actual set, and we start putting the lights, the costumes, the scenic elements, everything together. And so before we do that, we have designer run, which is in the rehearsal room, and all of the designers show up to watch a run of the show. And we have a production meeting afterwards, and we sort of talk about what we're going to do. Now, of course, there's already design in place. Like the designs have been designed for quite some time before designer run. But designer run is an opportunity for them to see what we're doing. And I think it's most instrumental of all for like costumes, for lights. That's when they're really figuring out, oh, where are you standing on stage? What do I have to light? What are the moments? And the costume designer, like you said, our costume designer, Yvonne, got to see, oh, okay, this is how, because she might read the play and meet with the actors and they've done fittings and she's done design, but she hasn't seen what I am doing with the actors. So she doesn't
Mhm.
quite know, who's really active. She has no way of knowing, Jürgen, that you're going to be like climbing all over the set because you've made these choices as an actor. And so that's also really informative about like how theater works is the designers get to come and say, "Oh, okay, you're doing that. Oh, I better make sure that you have a gusset in your pants, or maybe you're not wearing heels, or oh, your character turned out a little different than how I dreamed it from reading it on the page. Let me make these adjustments."
I think that's when for me, when you fully get into the actual character, when you have the apparel of the character, you're actually wearing the outer garment of the character. Um, my character is a transplant from a different area. And so the difference in the way someone from the East Coast dresses or sees fashion is very different, I think, than how it is on the West Coast. It's a bit more flowy and airy and just kind of, so that it brought an edge to my character, just trying to fit into it. It made her, it separated her a little bit, and you saw a difference in just the wardrobe of how she dressed compared to everyone else. And I think that separation helps aid me in how I play her in those scenes. And then there's I think a gradual integration of where you see her trying to fit in a little bit more in the wardrobe, where she's not quite as East Coast edgy, sophisticato, where she's actually relaxing a little bit and a little more flowy toward the end. But I think Yvonne did a wonderful job with dressing the characters, because it really is a part of how they're viewed from an aesthetic, and how people perceive them. So
Yeah, I think Yvonne did a brilliant job. I read something where I noticed that like they said, oh, they have different costumes every scene. And I was like, yeah, it's a different day. And we actually talked about that and sort of debated about that because plays have theatrical devices. You don't always have to put people in different clothes every single day that's supposed to pass in a play. So it doesn't always happen that way. But it felt really important to me to do that in this play, to really make sure that we understood not only that time was passing, but that things are changing internally with you all, and that I thought it was very important that we actually have costume changes between each scene. And that meant we had to deal with these gnarly transitions. And you guys have a lot of quick changes. And there's detail in y'all's costumes that no one knows about, but you all. It's
I said to
felt by the
Yvonne
audience,
during,
but not
yeah.
necessarily detail clocked by the audience. So sometimes people don't know that you not only have to like run off and change, your pants, but you might have to change your pants, your top, and several pieces of jewelry, some shoes. It's a lot.
Your hair, yeah, glasses, everything.
I
Yep.
changed my socks. And Yvonne was like, "You really want to change your socks?" And I said, "Yeah, like we're sitting for half of this play. Don is a man who thinks about his socks, and the audience can actually see my socks when I've got my legs crossed." And I said, "There's one scene in which I have time to change my socks, so I'm going to." Uh, so yeah, that's a little known fact that maybe no one notices, but I feel it's important.
Um, we're gonna start to wrap up, but we've got so get your final questions in,
Speed
folks.
round.
But I feel like this leads us right to Alicia asked us, does the scarf that Meiko's knitting
The seventh
continue to
character in the
grow each
play.
show, or do we unwind it and start in the same spot each show? I'll have you know that that scarf was started in the rehearsal room and has grown every day since then, and it's gonna get as long as it gets. Aurora, you want to talk about knitting the scarf?
Real quick, Caroline is our knitting, what's your title? Knitting head? Knitting
She's our knitting captain.
I did it,
knitting
Captain.
captain.
Knitting
So Caroline
supervisor.
started the scarf because I don't know how to start the thing. But once it's there, I can start it. But yes, they originally were thinking about unraveling it. And then they were going to maybe give me 3 scarves to rotate through, but the scarf grows every day. And every day it's more interesting trying to get it back into that bag, but it happens.
Yesterday, just before the show, Aurora and I are standing off stage, we're about ready to go on, and it's dimly lit off stage, and Aurora said, I think at the end of the show, you guys should auction this scarf off. And I looked down at it and I said, it looks good in this lighting.
I feel like we could maybe auction the scarf off, though. I don't know. That might be an idea. Or maybe you'll just keep it in,
It has a lot
create
of
a shrine
holes.
to it in the new Timeline
Sure.
Theater.
Yeah.
Has
Yeah.
a lot of holes. And yesterday it got caught in the zipper inside my purse, and I
I
had
saw
to.
you. I saw
We-
you snip it, and I was like, "Oh, that's
We
new."
learned, yeah, we learned in rehearsals that I need a pair of scissors in there because if something goes wrong, I got to be able to snip it, and that's what happened yesterday.
Huh?
Uh,
Live theater.
I kind of think I want to wrap up. Like, I feel like we've gotten to talk about all of the design, which is so cool. So thanks, Maya, for asking how important is the pre-show playlist to you all, and were you able to help create it? Short answer, yes. Our sound designer, Willow James, created that playlist. He and I created it together, and he made it collaborative and offered it to everyone to be able to contribute to. I think what the audience ends up hearing is mostly what he designed, but I think there's probably are contributions in there. Did anybody get their contribution into the playlist?
I don't think so, but we all profoundly love it and
We can
listen to
hear
like
it
our own
backstage.
stuff.
It's
Yeah,
piped
we
in,
listen to
yeah.
our own stuff, and then when it pre-show starts, that's what we listen to every time, and we know what song will comes on at what time, and it is our like our pre-show Bible. It is what we follow. He's got good taste.
Oh, and thank you, anonymous attendees who said, we saw the play last week, but now we want to see it again after listening to you all today. And
Oh.
thank you. And I also encourage it because you'll see so many fun little things that you didn't see last time, and you will notice things you didn't notice last time, and you will hear things you didn't hear last time. This is the kind of very detailed play that I think keeps giving.
You'll
And so if you
appreciate my
see it more than
socks now.
once, my cat is
Somebody
going
did ask if
emoji
we had
crazy right now.
dressers, and I just want to give a shout out to Otha and Jenny, who are the 2 dressers off stage who help and keep our wardrobe impeccable and in the quick changes. So yes, there are 2 magnificent people who are helping us dress and undress in the dark as quickly as we can and all that stuff. And it wouldn't be happening without them helping us. So we're insanely grateful to them.
Yeah. Thank you, Liz. Any final questions? Thumbs up to all of us from Pat and Jim. It's our favorite. Well, thank you, everybody, so very much. Thanks for coming to the show if you have, and thanks for coming to this discussion if you haven't seen the show yet. We look forward to doing it for you. And any last minute anything?
Thank you for supporting
Thank
theater.
you all. Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks, everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all very much for being here.